Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to week 9, episode 9 of the Fantasy Cheat Sheet podcast. Welcome back. If you've joined us before, you know how the show works. We break down the 10 things that you need to know heading into any week of the NFL. This week, we're at week 9. Hope you've had a good run of the season so far in weeks 1 through 8. We've had a good time on this show. And if you're new to the show, welcome in. Like I said, we're going to break down the 10 things, stats, sits, starts, key stats, maybe some gambling, things like that you need to know heading into this week and to try to help you out, try to help you either win your week, maybe win you some money, whatever works for you, whatever you're doing this weekend in the NFL. There's lots of things you can get involved with. I am your host, Jay Christensen, and you can find me at JAYC_DFF. And you can find this podcast on the Going for Two Live podcast network, which we are a part of. And you can always find that at Going for Two Live on Twitter, or check out the YouTube page for Going for Two Live. You can check out all our show, lots of other shows, great shows on Going for Two Live. So check that out when you can. I am joined by my one co-host right now. Our second co-host will be joining us in a minute. He's running a little bit late, but I'm going to introduce to you Evan Ritter. You could find him at EV_RITT3 on Twitter. What's going on tonight, Evan?
How's it going? How is it going? Ready to, once again, man, week 9, I'm still blown away that this season is going by so fast, but nonetheless, ready to hop right into it and get these cheat of the weeks going.
Yeah, it is flying by. I can't believe we are basically halfway through the season because they messed this up for us this year with the new game. It's, halfway through the games this week. We'll be halfway through, but whatever. It's flying by, but the playoffs will be here before we know it, which is good and bad at the same time because that means football will be coming close to an end at that point. Our other co-host, Mike Hicks, will be joining us in just a second, so I'll introduce you to him when he jumps on. But let's get into what we like to start off with on this show, and that's Thursday Night Football. We like to break that game down a little bit, give you some takeaways from that game, things we might have learned, key takeaways from the game. Last night, this was an interesting matchup. This was Colts versus Jets. High scoring affair, 45-30. I know this was a little bit fun for the gamblers out there. They might have taken the spread for the Colts because, the Jets were trying to backdoor cover that the whole night. And the Colts end up winning by 15. So the 45-30 there, big time scoring. We saw the era of Mike White on the Jets come and go really fast, unfortunately. I was enjoying that. I'm even a Patriots fan. And I was like, I'm ready for the Mike White era here. This is fun. Gets hurt early in that game. Colts pretty much cruise, although the Jets kept, even with Josh Johnson in the quarterback there, kept scoring points, which was interesting. But this was a game really dominated by that Colts offense. They really did not struggle to score the entire time. That Jets defense could not keep them out of the end zone. And like I said, big time scoring there from the Colts, getting up to 45 points. Let me throw it to you, Evan, though. Give me some takeaways from this game, anything you learned here, key takeaways, and, anything you want to throw at me from Thursday Night Football.
I think my main thing is that with Derrick Henry out of the picture now, I think Jonathan Taylor is approaching RB, running back 1 for the rest of the season.
Love it. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. And in Dynasty, man, he might be the running back to own. Absolutely the number 1 running back to own at just 22 years old. But yeah, I mean, this whole Colts offense as a whole, I mean, we talked about it on the cheat sheet, I think last week or the week before, how this Colts offense is kind of, coming into their own. Michael Pittman, Carson Wentz, they're all playing well. And then when you get Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines complimenting him as well as he did last night, this Colts offense could be an offense to, a force in this league for sure. But yeah, so that was just my main takeaway, was just how good that Colts offense looked. Even in a bad matchup, they did what they're supposed to do. I mean, they put up 45 points regardless of the matchup. They put up 45 points, and their offense looked freaking stellar. To your point about Mike White, it was kind of sad to see. I mean, I love good stories like that in sports, you know what I mean, especially in the NFL, and to see him standing in there once again, taking shots, standing in there, delivering dimes. He looked like he was, poised to have a decent outing once again. So it sucked to see him go down early. And then my last point is like I do on these Thursday night games every week, I play the showdown slate. And I play in one of the $3 tournaments, which is $25K to first. somebody actually at 0.8% owned Captain Josh Johnson and took down the whole tournament, 25,000 to himself.
What?
Yeah. Yep.
How
I
many
looked.
lineups does that guy play in that night? He
That's
had
what
to
I
have
said. I was
a
like, dude, he
lot of
had to.
lineups in
Yeah.
there.
I mean, it's only a 20 entry max, but I was like, yeah, he definitely had 20 lineups. But I mean, kudos to him. This guy freaking took a shot in the dark and came away with 25K. I just couldn't believe it. I looked, I was like, this guy really played Josh Johnson. But
Yeah,
anyway,
no.
at 0.8% owned. I mean, it is. Then I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, it's Mike White. If he comes out and he throws a pick or two early, maybe they just pull him, you know? So, I mean,
Yeah.
crazier things have happened, but either way, that guy is 25K richer today, and freaking shout out to him.
Jeez, that's one of those ones you're like, what am I supposed to do here? I'm supposed to
Yeah.
play Josh Johnson?
No.
What do you, like? That doesn't make any sense, but yet it works sometimes when injuries happen. Or yeah, Josh Johnson ends up with 317 in that game, three
touchdowns. Yeah.
Jeez, like what?
Unreal.
And I like to talk about the main beneficiary of that, and a guy I loved, and a lot of people loved coming in
Coming
pre-draft
out
process
party.
this year. Elijah Moore, who I mean, coming out of Ole Miss, really loved him on tape, really loved him as a prospect. Coming out, goes to the Jets, a wide receiver needy team, and guy blows up. Finally, coming out party for him: 7 receptions, 84 yards, 2 touchdowns, flashing all the things that I liked: quick cuts, great route running. Just, I mean, some of his routes there, he's just kind of making dudes miss. I mean, it's just guys didn't know what to do. That's what he did at Ole Miss. He is a fast route runner and just crisp in that area. And that's what they need on that team. He was really great. I mean, you saw Mike White hit him before he went out. Josh Johnson hits him later. So I think big things are in store for Elijah Moore. This is the first glimpse that we really got of him really balling out, and that was great to see. So I definitely love that from Elijah Moore. And then, yeah, Jonathan Taylor, man. We just had our show the other night, Brothers of Dynasty. We were actually going through our running backs, and we were all finally came to a consensus. I was there already. Jonathan Taylor, number 1 Dynasty running back. We're all on board with that, and you can't go wrong there. The guy can do it all. He's finally flashing everything I saw in college from him. Just the dude is a beast. I don't know how else to describe it. Just he's fast and he's big enough, and he can even catch some passes. He's fantastic. So,
and I think
Jonathan Taylor.
I think the Colts, I think the Colts staff is finally realizing, like, utilize your workhorse running back, man.
Yeah, finally first time he approached 20 carries.
Exactly. I was so glad to see it. I was like, finally they realized they got a stud of a freaking running back. So going forward, man, like we've both said, Jonathan Taylor is the man, and I'm sure our buddy Mike will agree.
Oh, I'm sure. I sent out some text before we introduce you, Mike. I sent out, if they let Jonathan Taylor last night, he could go for 300 yards if they want him to.
Oh yeah, scary. Oh, one more point. It was
he almost got hurt in that game.
Yes,
so that was scary. But yeah, he could. I mean, honestly, if there was a vacuum, there was no injuries like that, he could have just ran forever in that game. He was fantastic. But let's introduce you, Mike. Mike Hicks, as I said at the top, joining us. You can find him at Drop the Mike FF. What's up, Mike? Tell us how you're doing. And then, you got any takeaways from the Colts Jets last night? We've kind of broke that down a little bit, but give us some of your thoughts.
So you can find me at Drop the Mike FF. Like Jay said, I'm doing pretty good. Long day. I literally just walked in the door, but I'm here. Last night I didn't get to watch as much of the game as I want to do, but I was having fun at the Laker game, 6 rows from the court, so I'll take that. But what I saw and after looking into some stats at my lunch break, I was wrong on Michael Pittman this year, and I just want to come out and say that right now. I was wrong. I thought Michael Pittman was going to have a down year, and we all know, you guys have both probably said enough about Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor did his thing, but I do need even Pittman had a good game too, and I think this Colts offense is on its turn up. They just need to put it together against teams that are above 500 and not just teams that are below. But with the Tennessee stuff with Henry and everything, it's their division to maybe grasp, and who knows what can happen.
Yeah, no, you can never say enough about Jonathan Taylor either. You know,
No, never.
Did
You can't.
did you sit near Jack? Was Jack Nicholas in the house at the Laker game or no? Was he not?
Jack was not, but Flea and
Nice.
Quavo were.
Okay, that's cool. All right, at least you got some celebrity sightings, you know,
Yeah,
because you
I
got to
saw
get
Flea.
that at the Laker game. So
Yeah,
that's
you
good.
got to get that at the Laker game.
All right, so before we get into our 10 things that you need to know, that was enough for Thursday Night Football. We got a flurry of questions in the chat. I want to get to some of these. As always on this show, we try to get into as much in the chat as we can. We get to our 10 things that you need to know, but we love questions, so feel free to throw them in there. Here's one here. This is a question from Brock here, and he is in a 7 I don't know, 10 team. I don't know, 2 PPR flex. I can't even read that, but trade Amari and McKissick for Terry. I'm assuming he means Terry McLaurin. We also got offered some other things here, but the main thing here is it's Amari Cooper and JD McKissick for Terry McLaurin. I don't know where I come down on that. I really like Terry McLaurin, but I don't mind McKissick. I think he's playable, and I think Amari's close. I think I might take the Amari McKissick side of that, but what do you guys think if you were offered? And I'm going to assume this is a redraft league, Amari Cooper and McKissick for Terry McLaurin.
I'm staying with Amari and McKissick.
What about you, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, I love Terry, but when it's Amari and McKissick has PPR value. Amari is attached to a prolific offense and a top 5 quarterback, top 3 quarterback in my eyes. So yeah, I'd stick with Amari and McKissick.
I like that. So 3 for 3 there. That is how we would go there. Here's a pick 2. Van Jefferson, this going into this week, so week 9. Van Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy, Christian Kirk, Emmanuel Sanders, or Tim Patrick. And then they also follow it up with Freiermuth or Higbee, which might be a separate question, but let's pick 2 out of these guys. Van Jefferson, Jeudy, Kirk, Sanders, or Patrick. These are interesting guys. We might hit on some of these guys later, but for me, I think I'm going off the top of my head here. I really like Jefferson this week. I think that's a great matchup against the Titans, and I probably go Jeudy. But that's me. What do you guys think out of these guys here? Throw it to you, Evan.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to take a shot on a bounce back week from Emmanuel Sanders. Just the matchup in Jacksonville. I think the Bills are going to freaking rout them. So bounce back for him, and then I would go Jeudy as well. I think the Cowboys are going to score a lot on the Broncos. They've been a slumping defense, and I think that they're going to have to throw a lot if they want any chance of keeping up. So Jerry Jeudy should see a lot of targets.
I like that. What do you think, Mike?
I am actually right on thought with Evan on this one. For once, me and Evan agree on something right on the dot.
Nice.
I think Emmanuel Sanders, like you said, with Buffalo playing Jacksonville, Duval, whatever you want to call them, that's just going to be an eat 'em up game. And I think Jerry Jeudy, a game back from his injury, with the whole Arizona stuff, I'm staying away from Christian Kirk, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, actually, I don't think these are bad choices. Tim Patrick's probably the lowest on my list here because Kirk, if Hopkins doesn't play, I really like Kirk just because opportunity really presents, and Green's out of that game too. I mean, really, Kirk, he's got to eat in that game unless they can shut him down. And like I said, I think Van Jefferson's a little upside, probably a little bit riskier, but I agree on the Sanders bounce back game, and I like Jeudy too. So out of those 4 guys, I don't think you can go wrong. I think it's a little bit of a coin toss there between those 4 guys. So I have no problem with that. I want to hit one more here. We might circle back to some of these other questions later as we go through, but this is another pick 2. We've got Rashad Bateman, also Emmanuel Sanders, because I wanted to tie this in because he was also in the last one. This one's assuming Watkins doesn't play, which I'm not sure. I think he's pretty 50-50, but Julio Jones and Higgins. For me here, I'm just going to go with this more of the guys that are proven. I'll probably would go Julio, assuming he plays, and Higgins. What do you guys think here heading into this week? Would you go Sanders here, or are you going with more of like the proven guys like Jones or Higgins?
Yeah, I'm definitely playing Higgins, and then it would be up in the air for me between Sanders and Julio Jones. It's just hard to tell how this Titans offense is going to look. Are they going to go pass heavy? Without Henry there, our team's just going to drop back and play these 2 stud receivers now. And they do get a tough matchup So I think I may still take my shot on Sanders and just take the wait and see approach on this Titans offense.
Yep, don't hate it. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same way. To me, the biggest no-brainer is Higgins. Like, I'm playing Higgins no matter what in anything right now. I don't.
do like him this week. Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, I agree with Evan about Julio. About we don't know what they're going to do. I do think they're going to go more pass heavy, and of course, even if Henry was playing, I think they would go in this game. I think they would go a little more pass heavy, only because I think the Rams are going to put points on them. Because we all know the Titans' defense is not that good. They're bent and don't break. But so
It's how Mike Vrabel used to do it with the Patriots, bend don't break. That's what that's our motto. So let's kick it off. Like I said, we try to get to as many questions as we can, but we're here to present to you our countdown, 10 things you need to know heading into this week. So I see a couple more in the chat there. I will get to those after a couple topics here. I want to kick it off though with our number one topic of the week this week. This is for you, Evan. Why don't you kick it off with number one here?
So I'm going to go to the Saints to start it off. Sean Payton has already announced Trevor Siemian as a starter this week. After, he admirably stepped into it and replaced Jameis Winston last week after he got hurt, unfortunately going down for the year. And Siemian, he didn't have the best game. He did go 16 for 29, 159 yards and a touchdown. But probably his most impressive stat line, at least to me, was the 0 turnovers. He controlled the offense. He didn't turn the ball over. He came away with a win. That's probably the most important thing of all. Coming off a big upset like that, Taysom Hill just coming out of concussion protocol, I can kind of see why Sean Payton feels the need to give Siemian the start this week. But I'm still, under the impression that this is Taysom Hill's offense. I don't think the Trevor Siemian era is going to last very long in New Orleans. So Taysom Hill, even with Trevor Siemian named the starter, I think is going to have a vital role in the offense this week. And eventually will be named the New Orleans Saints starting quarterback for the remainder of the season, if not by halftime.
Sure.
And for fantasy purposes, I think as fantasy managers, we can sure hope so, because Hill is one of those quarterbacks that we like for fantasy purposes. When Hill started last year, he averaged 22.6 fantasy points per game. That was 6th best over that time span when he started. He had 209 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, which obviously boosted his numbers. But that's just the type of player we love as fantasy managers, is a quarterback that can, has rushing upside. And his rushing upside alone gives him, in my opinion, top 12 to top 10 upside. So with Trevor Siemian being named the starter, teams, league mates, kind of maybe slow to the punch as far as picking up Hill goes. And when I checked earlier, Hill was only 42% rostered on Sleeper. So he's widely available out there. And I think with injuries, bye weeks, why not go ahead and, especially in 2 quarterback leagues, maybe not so much in 1 quarterback leagues, but if you're hurting, definitely, maybe Trevor goes out there this week. He plays like Mike White for the Jets, and we're just like, what the heck? Where did this guy come from? But I'm going to put my money on Taysom Hill taking over the Saints offense for the remainder of the season. It just makes more sense for the current state of the team. They just lost Michael Thomas for the year. They have a stout defense. Get Hill behind center, run the hell out of him, run the hell out of Alvin Kamara. And I think that's kind of going to be the makeup of this New Orleans offense going forward.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised that after all the Winston versus Hill battle in preseason, that we end up in a world where Trevor Siemian is starting a game when Taysom Hill's healthy and active. It's wild to me. I was shocked that was announced. I know Siemian, was competent enough to lead them to a win last week. It was just crazy that, like, what were we talking about in preseason that was up in the air? If now you're going to Siemian, it's just crazy. I'm wondering if it's health related. It's just easing him back in. Obviously, Hill's been used in different ways, catching passes before. I mean, does he play in this game in a different role? And then potentially, like you said, like if Siemian struggles, does he come in? Like, this is like a hard thing to, from a fantasy perspective, it's make it easy on us. This is a hard one to figure out because I agree. I think this has to be Hill's team the rest of the year. It just doesn't make sense. But unless something's drastically changed, like I gotta think Hill's going to work himself in there at least by next week, which I would prefer. I have some leagues where I have Hill sitting there waiting, and I actually have Kyler in some of these leagues where I'm like, man, this would be nice to have that guy to move in if Kyler doesn't play.
Mhm.
And now I gotta, I don't know, figure out something else. I gotta pick Simeon up, so it's a bummer from that perspective. But I just feel like he's such a, from a fantasy perspective, he's like super safe. No, really not a lot of ceiling there for that offense, but maybe you can win him a game. I don't know. I've seen Simeon before, so you know what you're getting there. But Mike, any other thoughts on Trevor Simeon? I'm not excited, but
no, it's Trevor. I mean, it's Trevor Simeon. I mean, you can't. It's just one of those guys you're not going to get all pumped for. He's going to be, if he's going to do anything, he's going to keep you in the game. He's not going to win you the game. He's going to, I mean, there's not much else to say.
Yeah, I don't got anything else. Yeah, no notes on Trevor Simeon. I would like to see Taysom Hill, except maybe not as a Kamara. You know, if I have him on my team, I'm a little scared of Taysom Hill when he's more involved, but I do like that offense better with, it's weird. It's an interesting situation there of a conundrum if you have Alvin Kamara on your roster. But let's hit up your topic here, Mike, before we get to some of the other comments in the chat. Let's get to number 2 of our 10 countdowns of the week here of cheats of the week. Mike, what do you got at number 2?
So OBJ is no longer on the Browns, but I'm not here to talk about OBJ. I'm here to talk about what this means to Jarvis Landry. I think this is an uptick in Jarvis Landry's usage, and here is my stat of the week for Jarvis Landry himself. In the games that they've been on the same team in Cleveland the last 2 years, and OBJ has not been in the lineup, there's been 8 games. His target share has been 42, 29, 11, 41, 32, 20, 28, 20, and this year 25 and 31. Otherwise, he only had one game with him that his target usage was over 20 with OBJ in the game. I think right now, Fantasy Pros has him as 29 ranked wide receiver for the week. Even with it being Cincinnati, I think with Hunt still being out, Chubb not being 100%, Baker is going out there to prove that he is not the reason this team is not doing good. He, with the comments that OBJ's dad made and everything else that's going on with the whole thing, I think Baker's going to come out with a chip on his shoulder. Maybe not as big of a chip on his shoulder that he did when he came out and planted the flag at Ohio State when he was with Oklahoma. But he's going to come out and try to prove that he is not the reason this team is bad. They're going to put up a fight against Cincinnati. And I honestly think that Landry is going to be more like 20 to 24. I think he's going to be a top 24 wide receiver this week.
I like it. I don't disagree because he does get fed kind of overall, but yeah, especially when OBJ's not in, does feed Landry. I agree, especially with the point. I've seen this kind of floating around today, like Baker with a chip on his shoulder. Like seems like a Baker game where if you're going to prove it, you got to do it this week. All the OBJ stuff, is it Baker's fault for not throwing him the ball? There's just a lot going on there. This would seem, if you're a guy like Baker, this is going to get you motivated, and I would think they would be featuring the pass this week, and this is a team you can throw against. Obviously, Cincinnati, Mike White lit him up. This is a Bengals defense that is exploitable. So I don't disagree there, and I like Landry because that's the guy you got to throw it to there. That's the guy that he is the target of that team now. So I definitely would expect that to happen this weekend. Evan, any thoughts there in terms of Landry's value going into this weekend?
Yeah, especially for this week, I think I do like Landry especially with Odell going. He's going to see the targets. He's going to get peppered in targets. I think he gets a bump because of the matchup. Cincinnati is, as you just said, is a team that you can throw on. And if the Browns have trouble, containing this Bengals passing game and the Browns had to play catch up, then you could even see Landry, really hit his ceiling. So either way, I think this is just a plus matchup for him. Going, looking further, if they start to hit that run heavy approach, then I don't know how much of a ceiling Landry can have even with Odell out. But for this week, I'm in on Landry for sure.
Yeah, Landry's never really a ceiling guy. He's always, to me, like a pretty safe, like back end wide receiver 3, which is guy you could play, which is kind of his deal. But yeah, his upside's not necessarily there. But I think he could definitely. There's a little bit of upside this week, I think for sure. But let's get to one of the comments in the chat here. We've got a question. This is a sit one question. This is their full team. We've got Debo, DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, Justin Jefferson. I'm assuming that's Justin and not Jamar Jefferson, but it says Jay Jefferson. I'm guessing it's Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams. This must be a dynasty team because this is all
on one team.
This is a gloat. My team is awesome.
God damn. I am glad I'm not in this league.
Go start. Humble brag. But if I have to sit one here, if Debo's not injured, I think I'm sitting DJ Moore here just because I think the Pats could take him out of that game. But all these guys are studs, so I'm not really like, I don't think there's like a bad choice here. Obviously, if Debo's injured and he doesn't play, that's an easy one. But I lean, I guess, more here, but maybe Johnson. I don't know. I'm definitely these guys are all studs, so like you're really not losing here.
I mean,
so
just play eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and, and just to make it fair for your league mates. But yeah, like you said, obviously
sit them all. Just
if Debo's injured, obviously okay, cool. But if we have to pick one, you're not sitting Devontae Adams even with Jordan Love. Devontae Adams is, his efficiency numbers are going to go up regardless. Jordan Love, if he's, a smart young man, he will target Devontae Adams. So regardless, Devontae Adams is going to see his efficiency while it may go down a little bit. So DJ Moore, maybe just because of the quarterback situation and how this
PJ
offense
Walker.
is So that would be DJ Moore probably.
You on board there, Mike?
Yep. Definitely on board.
I just think that's the one. But man, I mean, embarrassment of riches there. So I think you're good either way. I think you might win this week. I don't know. Maybe it depends how your running backs are. Maybe they're atrocious. I don't know. But let's get to number 3 here. This is my topic. I want to talk about the biggest story of the week. Really was Derrick Henry's injury. That's where we kicked off the week. Derrick Henry gonna miss. I mean, it varies of how many weeks he's going to miss, but for fantasy purposes, I would not bank on Derrick Henry probably the rest of the year. This is a foot injury where he's probably out 8 to 10. So for fantasy purposes, he is probably not in your lineup the rest of the year. So that leads us to the Titans running backs. They signed Adrian Peterson this week to the practice squad. They've already elevated him to the main squad. He's going to play this weekend. But when you look at that depth chart, there wasn't a lot else there. That's why they signed Adrian Peterson. Rumors that, maybe someone else was in the mix here. The trade deadline came and went, and they did not do anything. But Jerry McNichols was the most involved running back of the other running backs on that squad. And when I'm looking at this matchup this week, I like the McNichols play better than Peterson for a couple of reasons. First of all, Peterson was just brought in, obviously. Adrian Peterson, one of the best running backs of all time, but he is 36 years old. He was sitting on his couch up until last week, and now he's brought on to the team. And that matchup screams to me the pass catching back. I think this is a game that they're going to have to throw in. They're facing the Rams on Sunday Night Football. I think they're going to have to score in this game. The Rams are a prolific offense. They've shown that this year. So I would lean more towards the guy that catches passes, and McNichols has been involved with the team in that perspective this year. He has a 10% target share on the team for the entire year. And this is a guy whose playing time is kind of, fluctuated, we'll say that. And out of the 8 weeks of the season, he's actually carved out a 10% target share for the team with 21 receptions. LA actually gives up a decent amount of points to the running back as well, 24 points per game, but they actually also average the 9th most in terms of receptions to opposing running backs, which is around 6 per game. So I think this is an area where I favor the pass catching back, and that's Jeremy McNichols. And I like him if I have to start a guy from this game. And I like him kind of as a back end too. I think he's a guy that you could play in this game that can get you some points, get over 10 points for PPR. And what's shaping up to be a tough week in terms of injuries, COVID, bye week. This is almost bye Mageddon-ish. Like, this is not a fun week in terms of questionable guys and just trying to comprise your lineup. So I don't mind Jeremy McNichols as a play this week at all. So I want to throw it to you guys. What do you make of that situation? Who do you got this week out of AP and McNichols? And who do you like going forward on that Titans team? I'll throw it to you first, Devin. What do you like on that Titans running back squad?
So, especially for this week, I'm on board with you in McNichols. I have him ahead of Peterson as well. Peterson falls outside of the top 30, for this week. He just has flex value. And I not only for this week, I think probably going forward, man. Peterson doesn't offer much in the pass game. We know that he's on the downslope of his career, that's for sure. And while he's one of those running backs that you can just run between the tackles, he's not Derrick Henry by any means. Teams are going to be able to load up for him. He's not that big of a threat. So Jeremy McNichols, we know, especially in PPR formats, coming out of the backfield, with the passing threat that he is, I think he has a ton of more upside. And like we've already alluded to, this game is most likely going to be the Titans trying to play catch up. They're going to need, to pass it down to McNichols a lot, especially with Ramsey probably blanketing their best receiver. So he, in PPR formats, based off of volume alone, he should be a viable play. I'm definitely just, not in on Peterson this week or moving forward. I just, while he needs to be on rosters, just because of the what if, and he's going to get volume. And in this landscape of running backs, any running back that's going to get volume needs to be owned or rostered for that matter. But yeah, I just don't expect anything other than flex value in deeper leagues out of Adrian Peterson. Jared McNichols definitely has the better value.
Like that, Mike. Any other thing to add there?
No, I mean, just McNichols. I mean, all that needs to be said is McNichols is the running back to own in this backfield. AP is just going to be a fill-in guy and maybe, get some touches here and there just to spell, but it's all McNichols backfield in my opinion.
We all agree. Let's move on to number 4. This is back to you, Evan. What's our 4th topic of the week this week?
So I think people need to get some Josh Jacobs. Get you some Josh Jacobs in your lineups this week. I think we just talked about him on the cheat sheet. I think it was last week or the week before. I think Mike, had him as one of the cheats of the week. But I'm going right back to him. I think this matchup against the Giants in Week 9 is worth touting Jacobs again because it's just too good to pass up. The Giants are giving up 21.9 fantasy points to opposing running backs. They rank 4th in rushing yards allowed. They've allowed backs to score or gain over 100 total yards in 7 of their 8 games this season. I'm not really sure why, experts are kind of, so low on Jacobs this week. Fantasy Pros has him at their RB21. It's a little low for me. He's seeing 71% of the team's touches. He's ran on 50% of Carr's dropbacks. He scored a touchdown in the last 3 games before the bye. He's seen more work than in the passing game than people think. He's actually outtouched Kenyon Drake to this point, which is pretty surprising. I think people, would be surprising for people to find out. So yeah, I just think people are too low on Jacobs this week. In this matchup, it's just too juicy of a matchup to pass up. I'm going to be starting him everywhere because, while consensus has him ranked as an RB2, in this matchup, I can easily see him put up RB1 numbers.
I agree. Not usually a Jacobs guy, but I am starting him this week. And yeah, I could definitely see that. I think he's a solid start, especially when you look down that RB2 list on Fantasy Pros. He's probably the one that stands out to me. Like, you You're the one who brought him up, I think, 2 weeks ago because they were
2
on
weeks
bye
ago.
last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you still on the Jacobs bandwagon this week?
Not as much as Evan, but I am on the bandwagon. I just got a foot hanging off, but I do think that this is a good matchup for Jacobs, for this team in general, and we'll get to another one soon.
Right. Yeah, RB2 gets I think he looks I think he could have a good week this week. The Giants are a particularly good matchup. So we will see how that goes. It all sort of depends on how they, kind of work in the other backs, and I think Drake's probably the only one there that could probably vulture into it, but we'll see how it shakes out this week. And I'm rooting for Jacobs to get more involved here because I had to start him in some spots this week. So give me some Jacobs. Let me roll it on to your topic here, number 5, Mike. What's our 5th topic of the week?
So I'm going to throw an audible, and I'm going to flip my 2 just because of the topic of discussion, that being the Raiders. To me, especially, I know Evan is our DFS guy here, but to me, the Raiders wide receivers, Brian Edwards at 4,100 and Hunter Renfro
4,800 Renfro.
4,800 at Renfro, and even season long. I am playing both these guys. I'm starting Edwards in one league, and I'm starting Renfro in 2. This is a game to put both of them in. I don't think this is going to be a Waller game. I'm letting everybody know this. Giants are actually decent against the tight end, but they are 26th in the league against wide receivers for fantasy points allowed in the league. Just like Evan gave his stat on how bad they are about giving points up to the running back, they're just as bad as giving points to wide receivers, but they're 5th or 6th against tight ends. So I don't think this is a Waller game. I think this is going to be a force feed game to Hunter Renfro. And I think, long shots and other, passes down the field to Edwards, and he's actually going to get the ball before the fourth quarter starts. So my play is Hunter Renfro and Brian Edwards in all formats, but especially hit him in those DFS lineups.
Love it. Those are some low prices, and yeah, I love that point on Edwards. Like maybe he'll get involved earlier in this game. That would be good for anybody playing Edwards out there. Renfro, always a solid play, really cheap price at 4,800. Like to hear that, Evan. You're the DFS. Give me your thoughts here. I think I know you like some Renfro this week.
Yeah, you actually hit me up with a question from somebody on Twitter earlier and asked me, what was a good cash game play, and my response, Mike, was Hunter Renfro at 48 freaking hundred. I mean, with the unfortunate news of Ruggs, which that's exactly what it is. I mean, that's just an unfortunate situation to a young man that was looking to start, like he was coming around and going to start having a promising career, but that's neither here nor there. Renfro, yes, love the play this week. I really like I like the Raiders as a whole this week in this matchup. As I've already talked about, Josh Jacobs, Derek Carr as well at only 5,900. The Raiders are cheap, viable, cheap and viable plays this week all across the board. Mike's talked about 2 of them. I've talked about Jacobs at 6,200. You can get Carr at 5,900. So yeah, for DFS purposes, in cash games especially, get you some Raiders in lineups this week.
That is right for sure. We like the Raiders this week. Let's get to number 6. That is my topic. And I'm jumping back to a guy we've talked about on this show before, but this is Robert Woods. Robert Woods, wide receiver on the Rams. He's come around. This is a tale of 2 seasons for Robert Woods. Let me break down some of the stats for you on how his year is gone. Let me break down weeks 5 through 8. Robert Woods suddenly has 24% target share on that team and is averaging 18 fantasy points per game, 71 fantasy points overall. He's had 33 targets in that time and has caught 23 balls. Robert Woods really, really playing well in weeks 5 through 8. Let me flash back to what we were talking about Robert Woods a few weeks ago. Weeks 1 through 4, he was averaging 11 fantasy points per game at that point, and his target share was down below 20% at about 18%. So this has really been a tale of 2 years for Robert Woods. He has certainly, it's been Cooper Kupp's show but Robert Woods has gotten more involved. It started with that week where all of a sudden it was like, let's get Robert Woods involved week. And since then, it's continued. Obviously, it's still 1 for Cooper Kupp, and he's the clear 2 here, but that is valuable in the system where they are scoring points. That is an efficient offense. Matt Stafford's throwing the ball well, and they are going up against the Titans defense here, which we've talked about before. This Titans defense is not good versus the pass. We've talked about it repeatedly on the show. They had one good week versus the pass. That was against the garbage Chiefs in that garbage game that the Chiefs played. But since then, Michael Pittman scores 2 touchdowns against them the week after, and I would expect more from the wide receivers this week versus that Titans defense that I don't think should be able to shut down the wide receiver at all. They've given up the most points to wide receivers this year on average. So I would expect good games from all the pass catchers on the Rams. That's why I kind of liked, we talked about Jefferson before. I like him as a play, depending on where your lineup is and what your choices are. I don't mind playing Van Jefferson. It's cleared out there. You're not going to see Deshaun Jackson coming off the bench or anything like that. He is off that team. He's no longer on the Rams. It's really, and Tutu Atwell is now on IR. So it's really a 3 receiver show there. Kupp, Woods, and Van Jefferson. I like all 3 this weekend. And I like Robert Woods. I think he's kind of reestablished that this is a guy you can play in your lineup week in and week out, especially this week. Thoughts there? Any, other thoughts on that matchup? I think you probably should like the Rams pass catchers, but any thoughts there? I'll throw it to you, Evan.
Yeah, no, I love, especially this week, love this matchup. It's definitely going to be one I'm targeting in DFS. I mean, Cooper Kupp is the one you want. I mean, he's had 90 targets to Robert Woods 60, 11 touchdowns to his 4. I mean, it's unreal. I would have never expected that big of a discrepancy in those numbers. But either way, once again, on this show earlier in the year, I've talked about Robert Woods. I like Robert Woods. He hasn't come around as quick as I thought he was going to, but moving forward, I think, better days are ahead. I'm still a Robert Woods truther, especially in this offense. This offense is too prolific for him not to end the year, having a good year. So yeah, moving forward, I like Robert Woods, but especially this week, I'm going to be pivoting to Robert Woods in my DFS lineups just to try to get off of that Cooper Kupp ownership and get a little cheaper price tag on Robert Woods.
Right, especially this week. I would assume this is where you want to hit on the more price. The price is right on the lower wide receiver here. Probably a lot of Van Jefferson probably get into lineups this week, I would assume, in DFS too, just for probably his price point's a little bit better. Mike, any other thoughts there on the Rams wide receivers?
No, I mean, I just think this is a wide receiver game in general. I mean, this is right up Evan's alley and my alley more than yours, but this is the only over-under over 50 this week, and it's at 52.5 right now.
Well,
so I think this is going to be, I mean, that just shows you that they think these teams are going to score. Like we've all said, Titans are going to probably come from behind. So I think this is going to be a Woods Cup. I mean, all 3 of them. I like the Jefferson call that you brought up earlier. I mean, I even think Higbee's probably going to have an okay game for tight ends. We'll get into that later, but it's just you never know. I mean,
I'll give you a choice now: Higbee or Pat Freiermuth. This was in a comment earlier. I'll separate it because I think it was separate, but I'm not sure. But Higbee or Freiermuth on this week. Mike, what do you think?
I'm still going Freiermuth because I think Freiermuth is. Freiermuth is starting to be. I wrote him up in the waiver article for GF2, and I just think he's starting to become their number 1 for sure. Even Ebron's out, and I think he's going to start seeing more red zone targets with Juju out of the lineup.
Yeah, fantastic catch if you caught the Freiermuth touchdown last week. Really, really great stuff from him. I like Freiermuth. What do you think, Evan, here, if you had to pick between Tyler Higbee and Pat Freiermuth?
Man, I really like Freiermuth. I really do. He's had, let me see here, 24 completions on 29 targets. He's just as sure-handed as they come. And he's already had 2 touchdowns, and I think, going forward, when quarterback, especially a veteran quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger starts to get some, of those young guys and they're shorthanded and he starts, building rapport and, starts trusting them, he's going to look their way. So I think with a little less options in the passing game, I like Freiermuth more than I do Higbee because I think those, targets are mostly going to be funneled towards Kupp and Woods and Van Jefferson, Darrell Henderson on the Rams compared to this Steelers offense. Freiermuth has a better chance of, catching a touchdown.
Yeah, it's changed with Ebron playing. He's questionable. Would that change your opinion if Ebron's in the lineup or?
It may. I may have to dig into a little more and actually, think about it a little more. But I do like Freiermuth, and
I do too. That's what I want to pick. It's just the Ebron thing.
I think Ebron is such a big waste of money. I mean, when you got Freiermuth that just looks like he's the true freak. He's the truth. Like, what the hell did they spend money on Ebron for? But.
Yeah, I agree. I would prefer. I think I'd lean Higbee if Ebron plays, but I'm totally fine going Freiermuth if he does.
Yeah, and season long, you might want to take Higbee. That's a more safer approach. If we're talking DFS, you might want to try to take your shot on Freiermuth.
Right, that makes sense. But that's good. We're going to talk about a little more tight ends in a little bit, but let's get to your next topic, number 7 this week. This is yours, Evan. Take it away.
Oh man. So earlier in the year, I was kind of touting Miles to drop Miles Gaskin.
Miles Gaskin.
I came around and I was like, dude, I think what, guys? I think you can drop Miles Gaskin. I remember Jay's response was like, wait, what? In all formats? He was like, no, don't do that.
I mean, I know why you wanted to, because I did too. But I mean,
so I hope no one took that for real and everyone listened to Jay. Anyway, that's just how frustrated, I was with Miles Gaskin. And this player's usage as a whole, because the freaking talent is undeniable. It was driving me crazy to see how underutilized he was. And since I was so high on him coming into the season, like most of us were. But finally, it looks like that has changed. With Malcolm, it took Malcolm Brown to go into injured reserve, but whatever it took, they finally are giving Miles Gaskin the rock. So yeah, Malcolm Brown's out due to a quad injury. We get a plus matchup against the Houston Texans. Miles Gaskin should freaking eat in this matchup. We saw him get handed the keys to the backfield finally over the last 2 weeks, seeing 34 total touches, I believe. I think it was 19 and 17, something like that. Maybe 30. I can't remember exactly. I think it was around 34 total touches in that span. I could see that volume getting ramped up this week against, an absolute putrid Texans defense, especially against the run. This Houston's Texans defense is just terrible against the run. They've allowed running backs to score a touchdown in the last 5 games. They rank 31st in rushing DVOA, giving up the most rushing yards in the league. So, I mean, you can't consider sitting any running back who's going to see 15-plus touches against his defense. You just can't. Miles Gaskin is easily a top 15 back in PPR for me this week, and honestly, that's me being conservative.
Yeah, he is definitely one of the most frustrating players in the league, though. He's really hard to start. I think it's a clear start this week, though. The way you laid it out, I agree, because that is a team you start your players against. Are they televising this game this week? They don't need to televise that game, right? That's not even going to show up on Red Zone, correct? I mean, is that game in London? Is that game in London? Do we know? Anybody
No, I don't believe so.
It's unbelievable. What a game.
Oh, man.
But I agree. Miles Gaskin, this is the week to start him. I hope. I hope we're not wrong. Because I think it's a good start. I agree. So, Mike, any thoughts? You like Miles Gaskin too? Sometimes.
I was a Miles Gaskin truther. I jumped off the bandwagon, but I do agree that this is the week for him. I had the same reaction that Jay had when Evan did bring up dropping him in all formats, but I'm glad that Evan has come around the corner a little bit.
It's an understandable reaction.
Oh, totally. Like, it's definitely
He's just a hard. I mean, the problem with players like Gaskin overall, that why I don't generally try to have these guys on my team, especially in Dynasty where I can control my roster complexion a little bit, is because I don't know when to start them. It's like one of those guys where it has to be so clear cut. Where I think this is a week, this makes sense, but other weeks it's like I don't know what that team's going to do.
Yep.
Like I just like it's just like a tough thing where you play them and they're gonna kill you when it's just you were wrong. Like, and just like there's certain players like that where it's hard. So it's like I try to avoid them as best as I can, which is easier said than done. But he falls into that group of guys where it's just hard to trust week to week. But like we said, if any matchup made sense, it's this one. So I have no problem with going with here. We have a couple other things in the chat here. We have another one from this commenter here, Tad Jakarp. This is I have a clear opinion on this one. I think trade. It's a trade scenario. Damian Harris, Higgins, and Julio Jones / Schultz. So I guess that's a choice for Josh Jacobs and Antonio Brown. I am way on the Damian Harris, Higgins, Julio Jones, or Schultz side. I don't care which one it is. I think Harris is underrated this year. That's a guy I think you could confidently start because if the Patriots have a nice game script matchup where they're going to run the ball, play Harris every one of those weeks, and you could probably play him anyways because they've given him plenty of work this year. And I love Higgins. And then you get a bonus of Jones or Schultz, and then the other side is Jacobs and Brown. So I am totally for that. You guys with me on that, or any differing opinions?
Oh yeah,
No,
for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you on that trade. I mean, if anything, I would try to maybe, if you're looking to trade Harris, you may be able to trade Damian Harris straight up for Josh Jacobs.
I think so. I mean, that's an argument of who you prefer rest of season.
Yeah,
honestly,
that's what
I don't think
I
that's
mean.
far apart.
But if
would
you're
have
trying to get
look
Josh
at the
Jacobs,
schedule, honestly, like
yeah. But if you're trying to get Josh Jacobs on your roster, he's already had his bye.
Right. That's
So
true.
you can plug him in. And so, Damian Harris has another big game. But yeah, I mean, I would not give up all that just to get Josh Jacobs and a
Brown's
hurt
hurt
Antonio.
too.
Yeah, and a hurt Antonio Brown on my roster. Yeah, no.
I love Higgins. Higgins, I think is the best guy in this trade.
That's my key is I'm not getting rid of Higgins to get Antonio Brown.
Yeah, I don't think that. So I am way on the no way I'm doing that if I'm on the Harris side of that. So that's what I'm going for there. And then let's see here. We've got another one from Go Start. And this is back to the guy where he had all those wide receivers, DJ Moore, Justin Jefferson, all the good ones. RB's not as impressive.
Okay.
He had Chuba Hubbard, Damian Harris, who we're talking about here, and Darrell Williams. Still has to sit one of these three. Who are you sitting out of Chuba, Damian Harris, and Darrell Williams?
We've heard that CMC might be back. So if that's the case, this is an easy one.
I think so.
If CMC is not back, to make this a little more difficult, man, that makes it a little harder.
Two of these guys are playing each other. That's the key too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so
Harris and Hubbard. Yeah.
Yeah, I may if I'm not sitting Hubbard, then I may take my shot on sitting Darrell Williams because
I'm starting Harris no matter what. That's the must start, and then the other two. It's close. I think I'd lean Williams if CMC plays too.
Right.
But so I think that's a good point. So I think that's where we're at there. And it's a little shout out to you, Mike. You were at the Lakers game. Drop the mic. How was
what's
the
up,
Lakers
Justin?
game? Russ sold. I don't know what Russ sold means, but maybe
he's talking. I don't think. I know Justin from another stream too. I don't think Justin's a Russell Westbrook fan. So, or he's just talking about the fact that he bricked the game-winning shot right in front of me. I was literally on that side of the court.
I mean, Russ does brick some shots sometimes. So.
What they they double come back from 19 or something?
It was 19 early, and then they took over. I mean, yeah, Justin's a Melo fan. They double-teamed Melo, and Westbrook had to take the shot. Melo was 6 for 8 or 5 for 7 or 5 from 8 from 3.
Melo went off.
He
went off from 3. Melo almost got into a fight. It was Melo was
I'm
on
a
fire.
casual NBA fan, so I'm confused that Melo was shooting crunch time for a team. But sure.
It's because the Lakers don't have any shooters. I'm a Laker fan, but they don't have any shooters. Evan knows that from his basketball expertise. They don't have shooters, Evan.
They do not. Nope. That
Yep,
is
so
for sure.
more on that later on the NBA cheat sheet podcast later.
Yep.
So good stuff though. I mean 6 rows, courts, somewhat courtside, I guess, at the
Yeah.
Lakers game. That's
Good
pretty
enough.
good. I like that.
Yep.
Let's get to number 8 though. This is you, Mike. Let's get into the topics you swapped here. What do you got for us here at number 8?
All right. So going into the season, I was totally against Urban frickin' Meyer. Didn't trust him. But guess what? I still don't trust him. And here we go.
You don't trust him now?
DJ Chark got injured in week 4. Ever since DJ Chark's injury, this is the target share that has been distributed. Not target share, but actual just targets. Laviska Shenault, 24. Dan Arnold, 25. Jamal Agnew and Marvin Jones at 26. I'm sorry, but this drives me absolutely nuts. They're playing Buffalo. Do not play any of your pass catchers unless you absolutely have to. That is my cheat. Do not play any of these guys unless you have to. When Jamal Agnew is your leading target getter since week 4 after Chark left, that person should be either Marvin Jones or Laviska. In my opinion, it should be Viska. I'm going to shout out a guy who used to be a GF2, G-Men J. He's a diehard Viska truther. And I agree with him that this should be Viska's job. But I don't know why Urban Meyer trusts Jamal Agnew that much. But my main cheater this week is do not play any pass catcher against Buffalo. And if you have to, probably the only one I'm going to is maybe Dan Arnold, just because of the Titans.
I'm playing Agnew in some leagues, mostly out of desperation.
Yeah, exactly. That's a little different.
Honestly, Viska, man, I listened to way too many Viska truthers this year. I wasn't really on board, and then I kind of drafted him in a couple spots because I got swayed.
Yep.
No good, man.
No, yeah. I'm not a Viska truther. I'm more of a chart truther, but since he's injured, I can't.
That's brutal. I mean, there's talent there. I'm not gonna, Viska. He kind of flashes when he gets the ball. He just doesn't get the ball. I just don't trust that team. I think that's if you can avoid that team, I'm totally for that. Unless you have James Robinson, yep. I think he's a solid play. But everything else is real dicey. But Evan, do you want to give any thoughts on the Jaguars, or I mean, you can pass this question.
I dropped Laviska in like week 2 or 3. I've been done with him and this whole team. They're just the talent's there. He's not scheming. Urban Meyer's not scheming anything up for him. It's too hard to deal with. I hate it. I hate the Jaguars. I hate this whole situation. Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, it's awful. Let's get to number 9. This is my topic here. I want to do a little tight end. Don't always talk about tight end. This is one where we got some tight ends out this week. Noah Fant on the COVID list, not playing this week, most likely. Hawkinson's on bye. George Kittle looks to be back, but coming off an injury list. Washington football team, their tight ends are out if you were looking to play Ricky Seals-Jones this week, or if you had a Logan Thomas and you were hoping he would come back. So a guy I like, there's some deeper tight ends that are interesting this week. Tyler Conklin's the one I kind of lean towards. Actually, Baltimore, looking at the list there, actually have given up the most points to tight ends this year. And when you look at Tyler Conklin, he's actually 16th overall on average points per game for tight ends. He had a game of 20 points, a couple games over 10. And on that team, he's commanded basically almost a 15% target share. And that's a team that has Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, obviously, have seen some, production from guys like Osborne on that team. But I like Conklin because he's been involved enough at the tight end position to produce. He's had receptions, basically usually gets 3 or 4 receptions plus every week. So especially if you're playing tight end premium, I don't mind him as a play. I don't have a ton else to say about Tyler Conklin, but I was looking at the ranks this week, and he's kind of guy who stands out at that 12 plus range, where he's a deeper guy if you need to play a tight end because you're missing a guy like a Hawk or a Fant, that I would kind of lean towards Tyler Conklin this week in that Baltimore matchup. Do you guys agree there, or do you have any other tight end sleepers that you want to talk about here? I'll throw it to you, Mike, first. You like Conklin, or any other guy stands out for you from the tight end position?
No, I agree with you on Conklin completely. I'm starting him in one league. I'm going back to the Freiermuth. I know there's a chance that Ebron plays, but if Ebron doesn't, I'm definitely smashing Freiermuth. And other than that, tight ends are, week by week. You never know what you're going to get unless you have one of those tops. So Conklin is one of those guys that I think is going to end up being an every week starter towards the bottom of the list just because of situation.
Yep. Evan, any other thoughts there, or other tight ends that you're kind of looking at, especially in like DFS this week?
Yeah, definitely as on a lower, if we're talking lower end tight ends, Dawson Knox is out again, so Tommy Sweeney could be a viable play at 3,100. He only ended, I think last week it was he had a 3 for 30 on 4 targets line, so not too impressive. But what is impressive is he played 82% of Buffalo's offensive snaps, so the opportunity can be there for him to have a big day. And at only 3,100, all you need is a touchdown. He's going to pay that price tag off. And then if we're going up into a little higher range, Blake Jarwin has already been ruled out. So Dalton Schultz is going to see all of the tight end snaps for Dallas. And he's only 4,900.
Dalton Schultz seems like such a clear cut, like top 8 guy now, like top 9 sort of. So it's like almost like he's not even like a sleeper anymore, right? He's just kind of like
no, not a
like
sleeper
you
by
play
any means.
Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, no, but just with Jarwin out, he's going to be.
He's that. Yeah, he's the guy on that team. I love Dalton Schultz. Definitely a guy. Every year, there's a guy at the tight end position that seems to be like a guy you get off waivers, and then they're your guy like the whole year.
Yep.
Seems
like who was that last year? Tunyon. Yeah,
like a Tunyon. So we got a couple. Before we get to our cheat of the week, our last segment of the week, let's throw it to a couple things in the chat here. Let's see this one here. We've got Gordon. So Melvin Gordon, James Conner, and Jarvis Landry, who we talked about earlier, half PPR league, and you got to start 2. What do we think here? So Melvin Gordon, we got Denver there, and then James Conner on that Arizona team, Jarvis Landry. Let's throw it to you, Mike, first. What do you think here out of these 3? Gordon, Conner, and Landry. It's got to start 2 of these guys.
To start off, Landry's my must. I am probably gonna lean Conner, partly because I think I don't think that game's gonna be a shootout, and I think that he's gonna end up scrounging up maybe a touchdown by the goal line.
All right, what do you think, Evan? Here, out of these 2, you got to sit one of these guys. Who you going with?
I'd probably sit Gordon too and take my shots to Conner. He's just getting all of the freaking work in when they get to the goal line. We know Conner's going to get in there, so I'm going to take my chances with Conner getting a touchdown. And I think that game script is going to call for the Broncos to have to throw a lot. And then Landry is just a safe floor at this point, especially with Odell out. So.
Yeah, I agree. Landry's definitely the must start there. The other 2, I think I could probably flip a coin between those. Don't love either, but I'm fine going Conner there. That's fine. So I'm with you guys there. We got another trade question here. This one comes from Lima W. Who wins this trade? They send Robert Woods, Chuba Hubbard, and Kadarius Toney, and Chris Carson. So 4 guys there: Woods, Hubbard, Toney, and Carson, and received Debo, Renfro, and Lance. This is a keeper league. So got some young guys in this trade where you might be able to keep them in the future. That's a lot to give on that Robert Woods, Hubbard, Toney, and Carson side. It's a pretty close one. Debo, I feel like, is the best player in this trade, though. So if I'm looking at sort of the guys I like rest of season on the Debo, Renfro, Lance side. So It's a really tight one though, because there's some guys on the other side that are pretty good too. I gotta go with the Debo side, but I'll throw it to you guys. Throw it to you, Evan, first. What do you think on this trade here?
The fact that it's a keeper league, I like the Debo sign. The Debo side. Debo's playing out of his minds with the Ruggs injury. Renfro, is going to have a safe floor in PPR. Even with Ruggs, but now with Ruggs gone, he gets a bump. And then Lance, I still think eventually, if it's not this year, he's going to take over that offense. He's just being groomed. And then Robert Woods, we just talked about him. I like, but he's towards the end of his career. Hubbard is as good as CMC is going to allow him to be. I do really like Tony. But then Chris Carson's on the downside of his career too. So Tony I really like, but I would take the Debo side, and give up Tony all day for that.
Nice. Mike, any differing opinion there? You?
No, same. I'm not as high on Tony or Carson right now. So I would take the Debo Renfro Lance because, obviously Lance, if this is a keeper league, obviously Lance, even if he doesn't do much this year, you're going to have the upside of next year in the keeper side. So that's my side of it.
Nice. All on board here. So let's go from there to our cheat of the week. This is number 10. This is our last topic of the week to wrap up the show. We each got a little stat for you here, or a little something extra, or some gambling knowledge here. We'll throw it to you, Evan. You got an underdog. Money. Yeah, you hit last week.
I did.
You've hit most weeks on this show. I don't know what I did, like 6 of 8 or 7 of 8. I don't know. It's really good stats. So bet on Evan here.
Yeah, I took my second loss last week. When we're talking single, just the single underdog I give. I took my second loss last week when I, touted the Vikings. But I was on the Steelers really, and that one hit. So, happy there. And plus, I also hit a underdog, a three-team underdog parlay, $100, cashed out $1,600. I was waiting for those DMs last week so I could hand out that underdog parlay. I was waiting for people to hit me up so we could talk shop. I'm looking to talk shop, and give you guys these plays. So hit me up. Because like I said, if you got in on it, $100 bet, we cashed $1,600. Anyway, moving forward, because that week is behind us. This is a whole new week, and things could go totally different. But this week I'm going to go with, for my underdog pick, I'm going to go with the San Francisco 49ers at plus 130 to upset the Arizona Cardinals. They've already played a tight game earlier this year, which ended 17-10. Murray, Hopkins, Chase Edmonds, all banged up. AJ Green out with COVID. The Niners are at home. They have the better coach. By far, they have the better coach. They have Eli Mitchell coming off 200-yard games. They can control the clock with him. And big news here, they get George Kittle back, who obviously is huge for that offense, but he does so much for them in their running attack, being arguably the best blocking tight end in the business. So, yeah, Niners upset the Cardinals in Week 9.
Another one that makes a lot of sense. Evan always makes sense here with this thing. It's always a underdog that makes a lot of sense, and I could totally see that happening for sure. Mike, are you on board with that too? You like 49ers there?
I am in total agreement with Evan. In my work pool, I picked Frisco to beat them straight up.
Yeah, and while we're talking about it, I don't know what your cheat is, Mike, but Packers are suddenly like what are they? A -8?
Oh yeah,
or +8. Sorry, I'm a gambling novice, so +8 versus the Chiefs. I actually love the Packers in that. That line flew down with
it's
the Rodgers news.
It's live 7.5. Live 7.
I like them. I kind of like the Packers there.
I wouldn't be surprised if it creeps up a little higher until they start getting some Packers money.
Yeah, I think that's going to creep back up because it's screaming for it to be bet on the Packers side right now. So it's because that just plummeted with the whole Rodgers drama this week and Jordan Love playing. I still think the Packers can win that game. So, but we'll see. Jordan Love's an interesting guy to bet on, but for sure, because he hasn't played. But the Chiefs are also a dumpster fire.
It's a short sample size on Love. You know what I mean?
And no tape. So
he's
too,
got
yeah.
no short sample size, no tape. He's had plenty of time to kind of be groomed and sit there and watch Rodgers. And if you're gonna step in and get a chance against any defense, this is a good defense to do it
Yeah,
against.
it's such a good matchup there. But I don't
Sorry,
know what
Mike.
you were gonna talk about there, Mike. But
Not
take it
that,
away. This
not
is your
that.
Chiefs week. You don't want to talk about your Chiefs, but
All
you
right,
can talk about
so
whatever you want.
I'm going with my goofy stat of the week, and I'm going back to the tight end barrel. Inline snap percentage for tight ends. It's not the same NFL. Tight ends, I mean, you got guys that, wide out, spread out, not as much on the line as it used to be. But I saw the stat, and a couple of these are actually flabbergasting to me how little or how much some of these guys play in line. An example, Noah Fant plays 80% of his snaps in the line. Kyle Pitts is 26. Dalton Schultz is 61%. That doesn't surprise me just because of the way Dallas has been using their offense with certain guys out. Darren Waller plays at 63% of the snaps in line. Here's the most shocking to me. What do you think? Take a wild stab at Mike Gesicki's inline snap percentage.
30%.
How about 8?
Wow, it's lower than Pitts.
So Pitts is second with 26.
I
and
thought he was
Gesicki,
around Pitts, but wow. Oof.
he's at 8% inline snap percentage. And 3 of the top 4 guys in scoring right now for tight ends are under 40%. It's the new NFL, but I just wanted to throw that out there as my goofy stat of the week for my cheat because I love Gesicki. I think Gesicki's going to have a good game this week. Houston is ranked 22nd in fantasy points against tight ends. So I think I know Evan thinks it's a Gaskin week, and I agree with him. But with Devontae Parker also being put on the IR today, I think this is a Gesicki week, and I think Gesicki is play him all year long. Just he's a smash start in my opinion.
He's a tight end 1, clearly, like definitely top 7 at the very lowest. Gesicki. I was shocked. I knew he was one of the lowest, in terms of in line.
But that shocked me.
If anybody should change their position, no one should change their position from tight end to wide receiver. But people like to talk about Pitts, but it's Gesicki's the one who should be a wide receiver.
That's what I was laughing about when I saw it. When I saw it, that was what I was laughing at.
Let me get to my cheat of the week here. Love that. I love Gesicki. Eagles running backs. This is just a fun stat that Miles Sanders plays the whole year for them, and their pass percentage is 60% the whole year. Last week it was 30% that they ran the shit out of the ball last week. All of a sudden this team just decides to give all the running backs multiple carries last week. You had 12 plus runs for Boston Scott, Jordan Howard, and Kenneth Gainwell all last week. Now granted, they played the Detroit Lions, which is an atrocious defense. Slightly frisky at times, but mostly terrible. And they're not a good defense against the run. And honestly, Philly was able to do whatever they wanted in that game. But it's just funny that this must be just awful for anybody rostering Miles Sanders, which I am not. I don't roster him in any league, actually. I'm in 20 leagues. I don't have any Miles Sanders. But if you roster him, he's a talented running back. He gets hurt and suddenly they run the ball all day. It must be infuriating. But going into this week, they get one of the best teams to run the ball against this year, especially lately. The Chargers, they can't stop anybody in the run. Over the last, I think since week 5, I have here, since week 5, they've allowed the second most on average points versus opposing running backs. The only worst team is the Jets. We just saw what they did the other night, last night against the Colts. They're terrible against the run. I expect the Chargers to be equally as terrible. So I kind of like all those running backs in this game. I think Boston Scott's a solid play. And I actually think Jordan Howard's not terrible if you're desperate. Got to go a little bit farther down the list, but they trust him near the goal line. I know this is a guy that's bounced around teams. You can't even remember what team he's on. He's on the Eagles again. they give him goal line carries, and you can run against the Chargers. So I think they're going to be able to do that. Gainwell's a little bit riskier because they just didn't play him last week until late, which was weird. I thought he would be more involved. I think a lot of people did, but they didn't really use him until they were way up in that game. So I would trust the other two guys more, but I think we could trust this Eagles running game a little bit more than we did, particularly in this matchup, because this is a team you can run against. So I like that this weekend, and I think these are kind of some deeper plays that you can play. Guys, we're a little bit over an hour here. We're a little bit out of time. So any other thoughts on what I brought up there, or any other thoughts on cheats of the week? We've gotten through our 10 topics here. Let's sign off here, a little round robin of where we can find us and what we're working on. And if you have any last thoughts on any of the topics, throw them at me. Start with you, Evan.
No other real thoughts. Just another great week. Man, I love being here with you fellas. It's always a fun time every Friday. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. As always, you can find most of our stuff, me and Jay and Mike stuff at goingfor2.com. You can find me at Twitter at EV_RITT3 at _RIT3. Over at Twitter, man, when I got on Twitter, dude, I probably should have made that a little bit easier. That is a mouthful for me to say.
Is Evan Ritter available? Do you have to pay him?
Granted, when I made that, I wasn't planning on going into this. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
You can change it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing that because every week I go back and rewatch and just kind of what can I get better at? What did I so forth. And every freaking week I stumble over saying my own Twitter handle. But anyway, yeah. Find us here Fridays, all of our stuff at Going for Two. I'll be on this Sunday show with Gerson. We won't have Eric this week, but hopefully we'll get a fill-in and Gladys where we talk DFS, start sits, actives, inactives, all that good stuff. It's a good time at 11 o'clock before the game starts on Sunday. And I just took on a little bit of a news desk role. This isn't football related, but NBA related. So I'm actually going to be putting out a NBA DFS article for them every Saturday and Sunday. So follow me on Twitter. Check that out. Once again, love being here with you fellas. Thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Awesome. Mike, give us a little last thoughts and where we could find you.
My last thought on your take, because I do have one quick thought, is that drove me nuts because I thought it was going to be Devontae Smith and ended up being every damn running back on every.
No, I had Jalen Hurts in a couple leagues, and that hurt.
Drove me nuts.
Yeah, just yeah.
But other than that, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram for my graphics that I'm still working on at Drop the Mic FF. I posted one today. I'm going to do one every Friday now. I'm going to call it Flashback Friday, and I'm going to pick a position from a certain team and try to put people from different generations. Today I did the Bengals. I had Ken Anderson, Boomer Esiason, and Joe Burrow. We'll see what next week. But other than that, great to be here and see you guys next week.
Great. That's awesome. And you can find me at JAYC_DFF on Twitter. I write for Going for Two. You could also find me on the Brothers of Dynasty podcast with my two brothers. That is, you can find us at Bros of Dynasty there on Twitter. And we record every week. And you can find us here on the Fantasy Cheat Sheet. We'll be here next Friday at 8:30 Eastern Time at the Going for Two Live network. Otherwise, that's what we got for you tonight. Enjoy week 9. See if you could survive this week. I think this is, like I said earlier, almost as worse as Bimageddon. Lots of injuries, lots of stuff. Pay attention to your lineups. Pay attention who's playing. I have lots of scenarios where I have to swap guys in and out because of 4:30 games. It's going to be a nightmare, but enjoy. Hope you win some games this weekend, win some money, play some DFS, have some fun, and we will catch you next week. For Mike and Evan, I am Jay. We will catch you later. See ya.